Hey guys, today I will be making my projection for the 2020 presidential election between President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. So today I'm just going to be filling in this electoral map and making my official prediction for what I think is going to occur on election night or after election night in this case, because of the mail-in ballots. I don't think full projections or results are going to come out on election night, and we may have to wait days or even weeks for the results to come in. So I'm just going to start off, as I usually do, with filling in the safe states for Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And if you don't know how to make my classification, safe is plus 15% or more in favor of either candidate, likely is 7 to 15%, lean is between 2 and 15%, and then kill is between 0 and 2%. So starting off with the Biden states, first the West Coast is all going to be dark blue, and there's really no point about talking about these states, because these states are going to go to Joe Biden no matter what. There's no chance that Trump is going to win in these states, and Trump is not even going to try in these states, because these states are very solidly Democrat. Washington is polling in favor of Joe Biden by 26 points, California by over 30 points. So there's no way that Trump can swing these states over, and there's a lot of Republican states that Biden could never wish to win. So these states are all going to be safe for either candidate, very safe, and most of the Northeast is all dark blue for Joe Biden. New York is also a solid blue state. The state of Illinois is also a solid blue state, and then the state of Maine and the first district of Maine, I think, are also going to be solid blue districts and states, I guess. So that gives Joe Biden 185 electoral votes from his safe states. And then for President Trump, Idaho is a safe state. Wyoming, the most conservative state in the entire country from 2016, is again going to be a safe Republican state. The Dakotas are going to be safe, as well as Nebraska's first and third district vote. I think the second district vote and the at-large vote are going to be a little bit closer. I'm going to fill that in just a bit. The state of Oklahoma, I think, is also going to be pretty safe. Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. I have moved some of these southern states back into the safe Trump column, just because I think that Trump is going to overperform the polls in these states. Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, I also think are going to be safe. So that is all of the states that I think are going to be safe for President Trump in the 2020 election. That gives him 75 electoral votes to Joe Biden with 185. Now, Joe Biden does start off with an advantage here, just because there are always going to be more Democratic states than Republican states. But there are quite a number of states that Trump might not win with a solid margin, but is going to carry it anyways. So these are states like Montana and Utah, states that Joe Biden has absolutely no chance of carrying, but states that Trump is not going to have a 15% or larger margin in. These are states that Mitt Romney probably would have carried with a safe margin, but states that Trump did not carry in 2016 with a safe margin, or states that he's not expected to carry with a safe margin in 2020. So these are the other typically more solid Republican states. These states of Montana. Utah is also a pretty solidly red state. However, it's not going to vote by over 15% in 2020, which is very unfortunate for Donald Trump. Kansas is also going to be a likely state, along with the state of Alaska. Alaska is not going to be solid. It was not even solid for him in 2016. It is not going to be in 2020. Missouri is also a little bit closer between Trump and Biden right now, as well as South Carolina and Mike Pence's home state of Indiana. So this gives Donald Trump 123 electoral votes to Joe Biden with 185. So what I want to do next is take a look at the swing states. These are the states that I would consider to be the swing states, and states that Trump and Biden should both be putting money in. So I'm going to start out by filling in the little bit safer Biden states, Colorado, New Mexico. These states honestly have really no chance of going to Trump at this point. They have been getting safer and safer for Joe Biden. These states definitely could have been won by a Republican just a couple of decades ago, but now these states are pretty solid in the Democratic column, probably not 15% or larger margins, but these states are both going to go to Joe Biden, and the Democrats are very likely to have victories in the Senate in both of these states, with Ben Ray Lujan winning in New Mexico and then John Hickenlooper winning in Colorado, both winning by pretty large margins right now. So Colorado, New Mexico going to be in the likely Biden column. Virginia, I also believe, is going to be likely for the former vice president as well. Virginia, honestly, a Republican has never won a statewide race in the state of Virginia for over a decade now. So the GOP in the state is basically dead. The state of Virginia used to be a Republican stronghold, somewhat like Texas. The state of Virginia now, a lot of the northern Virginian voters are now aligning more with the states of Maryland and the DC area, who are very liberal. So Virginia is now a pretty safer state for the Democrats, I guess, but not a solid state in terms of the margins. And then two other states that I think are going to be likely, three other states. First, New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire is actually going to be a likely state. New Hampshire only went Hillary Clinton by 0.4%. Now, she was a very unpopular candidate, and she was not too popular here in the Northeast. Of course, Vermont is the home state of Bernie Sanders, and a lot of Bernie supporters did not support Clinton. And of course, there are a lot of Bernie supporters in New Hampshire who voted for him in the 2016 primary here. But in 2020, Joe Biden seems to be doing much better among the voters in the state of New Hampshire. He leads by over 8% in the polls right now. So New Hampshire, I'm going to give to Joe Biden as a likely state. Hillary Clinton only carried this by 0.4% again. So very disappointing for her. But Joe Biden is going to bring this state back into a more solid Democratic state. And then the state of Minnesota, I also think is going to be a likely state. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, there were a lot of people saying how Minnesota was not going to be as safe as it once was. Many people did think that Trump had a chance of flipping the state. But the three latest polls from the state of Minnesota in 538, these are all pretty highly rated pollsters. They all give Joe Biden plus 9% in their three polls. Minnesota is now pretty safe for Joe Biden at this point. Not a safe margin, but pretty safe in terms of the fact that it is probably almost definitely going to go to the former vice president. Minnesota is becoming safer once again. After the RNC, Trump did receive quite a significant bump in the state, but his numbers seems to have fallen after the, weeks after the RNC. And then the final likely Democratic state, I think, is the state of Michigan. Yes, I think that Michigan is going to be better for Joe Biden than Nevada. So why I'm putting Michigan in the likely Democratic column, Michigan has been pretty solid for Joe Biden this entire campaign. Michigan has been leading, Joe Biden's been leading in Michigan for quite a while by over 7%. So I think that Joe Biden is still probably going to underperform just a tiny bit here, but I think that after all the votes are counted, Michigan is going to be a likely state for Joe Biden. And so these are basically these likely and solid states filled in. This gives Joe Biden 242 electoral votes and Donald Trump 123. Now what this map is this map is basically the 2016 map for Joe Biden in terms of the states that Clinton won, plus the state of Michigan, and without these other two districts filled in, and the state of Nevada. So this is basically the 2016 map for Joe Biden, with the exception of the state of Nevada and Joe Biden carrying the state of Michigan. So Nevada, I also think, is going to be a Biden state, except with a lean margin. I think that Nevada is still going to go to Joe Biden. I think there's no question about that, but I do not think that Joe Biden is going to do too great here. Hillary Clinton actually outperformed the polls in this state. This was one of the only states in which she did better than expected. The state of Nevada was in favor of Donald Trump according to the average pollings, the polling averages, by 0.1% in favor of the current president right now on election night. But Hillary Clinton was able to pull off a 2.4% win on election night in the state of Nevada. So she did better in Nevada than New Hampshire. But Joe Biden is doing better in Nevada than Clinton was. He has been leading in the polls here throughout the entire election cycle, unlike Clinton, who was not even leading here on election night. But Joe Biden is expected to win Nevada, and I think it's going to be a lean state for the former vice president. And then some other lean states for the Biden campaign. I think the rest of the Rust Belt, meaning the states of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, the other two states in the blue wall that Trump was able to break through in 2016, I think are going to be likely states for Joe Biden. I'm not likely lean states for Joe Biden. Now, these states are not as solid for Biden as they were in the summer. He was doing pretty well, really well in these states in both June and July. His numbers have fallen back down to earth a little bit, but he's still expected to win these states by likely and lean margins. So by the blue wall, I'm referring to Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These three states, before Trump won them in 2016, were solidly Democrat for over 20 years. These states went to the Democratic Party in every single election for over 2 decades, some even 3. I think Wisconsin is closer to 3 years, 30 decades. So these states were pretty solid for the Democrats before Trump was surprisingly able to carry them in 2016. Now, Trump carried all of these states by less than 1%. He won Michigan by 11,000 votes. So Hillary Clinton was able to win just a margin of the third-party vote here in Michigan. She would have won this state. But she didn't win those states or those voters, so she lost all 3 of these states. You could fit all the voters that cost Clinton the election in a medium-sized football stadium. That is just how close the margins were in these 3 states. And Clinton's favorability in 2016 was around negative 16%. Joe Biden's is plus 3%. He is almost 20% more popular than Hillary Clinton was in 2016. So I think he's going to have no problem winning these states. In Joe Biden's worst case scenario, I could see these 3 states being tilt states, but I don't think that's going to occur. I think Joe Biden is definitely going to do much better than that in these 3 crucial Rust Belt states. And the last likely or lean state for Joe Biden on this map, in my opinion, is the state of Arizona. 11 electoral votes, a state that has not gone to a Democrat since 1996 when Bill Clinton won 379 electoral votes. Now, the state of Arizona was not safe for Trump in 2016. He won this state by around 3.8% just 4 years ago. Hillary Clinton was not expected to win. This race was not as competitive as it is now in 2016, but Arizona has been having its demographic shift. So the state of Arizona, the largest city in Arizona is the city of Phoenix, and Phoenix is the fastest growing city in the entire country. And most of these new population, I guess, is all people of color and especially Latino voters. And those kinds of voters, they may not be as strong for Biden as they were for Clinton in 2016. Biden does have a problem with Latino voters, that is true, but in the state of Arizona, those voters are almost definitely going to vote for Joe Biden. I cannot see those voters going for Donald Trump. And so this actually does put Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes after winning the Rust Belt. So this is basically the identical 2016 map based on the states won by Clinton, plus the 3 Rust Belt states she lost by less than 1%. So yes, that does put Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes. And the state of Arizona, that is going also to be in the lean column for Joe Biden. I think that the state of Arizona is doing pretty well for him right now. I think that Mark Kelly, who is running for the Senate there, is definitely going to help him. Kelly leads by over 10% right now. I think he's going to win by at least 10%. He leads in 15% in some polls against Martha McSally. So I think that Mark Kelly's definitely going to outperform Joe Biden and maybe even bring up his numbers here in the state of Arizona. 11 electoral votes will be added into the Biden column. Next, I want to take a look at the states of Nebraska and Maine, these 2 states that vote with an at-large and district-wide system. First, with the state of Nebraska, I think Joe Biden is going to carry the 2nd district with a lean margin. He has been doing pretty well here in the polls. Not too many polls, but he does lead in all of them. And I think Trump's still going to win the at-large vote, of course, but it's going to be a likely vote for the president in the Nebraska at-large vote. And then in the Maine the Maine 2nd district vote, we already categorized the at-large and 1st district vote. But in the 2nd district of Maine, I think Joe Biden is going to carry this with a tilt margin. I think that's going to be very close, but I think Joe Biden will be able to flip the 2nd district of Maine with a very small margin. And now we have 6 states left. These, in my opinion, are some of the most important states for President Trump. And honestly, he has already lost some of these states, but these states, if Trump loses these states, he's going to lose the election. So I think first I'm just going to fill in the safer states out of these 6 states for the president. I'm going to fill in Iowa and Texas. I think these are both going to be lean Republican states. So the state of Iowa, I think, is going to go to Trump with a lean margin. I did put this in the tilt column last time, but Trump's lead in these 2 states, although not good, has become more consistent. It's less of an up and down between Trump and Biden. It's more of a Trump +2, +3 scenario right now. So I think these states are going to be lean states, and I think that Trump is going to outperform the polls here. He did underperform in Texas in 2016, but I think that now, just because of how close it is, Trump is going to overperform. Just because of, first of all, the mail-in voting in the state of Texas is very hard to do. In the state of Texas, the mail-in ballots, you have to request for one instead of other states where they sent you one anyways. And of course, Texas is a GOP state and a very important state for Trump. If Trump loses Texas, he cannot get to 270. There's no way he can get to 270 electoral votes without the state of Texas. And Iowa, I think this state went to Trump by 9% in 2016. I think it's going to be a lean state for him in 2020. Now, the states of Ohio and Georgia, I think these are going to be tilt Republican states. I think that these states are still going to go to the GOP, but I think these states are going to be very close, especially Ohio. Ohio has been pretty up and down in the 2020 election cycle. Georgia has also been pretty up and down. Well, it has become a little bit more stable for Trump, like Iowa and Texas, but the margin is still very close and too close for Trump to be happy about his numbers here. And the states of North Carolina and Florida. Now, Florida, I was considering putting the state of Florida into the Trump column, but Joe Biden has been leading for the entire election cycle in the state of Florida. Joe Biden has never been behind President Trump in the state of Florida, and as well as the state of North Carolina as well. Biden has always been leading in these two states. At Biden's peak, he was leading by over 7%, almost 8% in Florida over the president. And I think that the state of Florida is going to continue to go to Joe Biden. I think that he's going to continue to lead in the polls, and the main reason why I'm keeping it in the Biden column is because Michael Bloomberg, of course, has announced that he is going to invest $100 million into ad campaigns for Joe Biden in the state of Florida. Now, this is more than what Hillary Clinton spent in the state of Florida for basically the entire election cycle. She spent around $96 million, and in just the last 2 months, less than 2 months, 50 days, I think we're at right now, 49 the day this comes out, but the state of Florida, Biden will be spending more money in the last 49 days up until the election in the state of Florida than Clinton spent the entire time. Clinton might have still lost his state, but money is still important, and Trump is not as popular as he once was before in 2016. So I think that the state of Florida is going to do Joe Biden with a tilt margin. And the state of North Carolina as well. I think North Carolina is going to be the closest state. I honestly think it is. I used to say it was Ohio, but I think Ohio is going to be pretty close, but North Carolina is definitely going to be closer. Now, the chances of each candidate winning in North Carolina, based on the forecast, is basically a 50-50. 538 has it at 54-46, and North Carolina is the closest state right now in that forecast. So I think North Carolina, by the slimmest of margins, is still going to go to Joe Biden. I think that just a lot of voters, seeing how Biden could carry the state and flip the state for the first time since 2008, I think a lot of people are going to come out for Joe Biden, especially the African American population here in North Carolina. So I think that is going to put Biden over the edge, and I think that Joe Biden is going to win a projected 335 electoral votes to President Trump with 203 electoral votes. So basically, this is my updated 2020 presidential election prediction for the beginning of the month of, or not the beginning, the middle of the month of September. We only have less than 50 days up until the election. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like on this video, as well as subscribing to my channel. Would really appreciate that. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, as well as video suggestions you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see you in the next video.